Greetings, one and all. Welcome back to another episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. It's me once again, Odd Man Rush, you know me. And of course we've got Chris over there. Over that way.
Hello.
Alright, mate? Alright?
Oi.
So yeah, episode 14 we're on today. Whew, we're speeding through these as the weeks come by, ladies and gents. Before we start, I'd just like to say a big thank you for helping me reach 3,000 subscribers.
Woo!
That's pretty cool. Hit 3,000 subs overnight, which was really awesome. I'd seen it coming for a little while, and before I went to bed, it was sat at 2,999. I was just there like, oh, come on! Like, give me something here.
I want to see this change.
Yeah, exactly. And then I woke up this morning, and it was like at 3,003, so awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I haven't done like a special thank you video for it, because it's not exactly like a well-known milestone, 3,000, I don't think. I've got a video going up tonight. I'll talk about that more towards the end. But yeah, so anyway, let's get on with the podcast, shall we, folks? Chris hasn't hit 3,000 subscribers, so
I don't think I've hit 1 subscriber.
Well, we'll get there. So, yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about in the Elite League and in British hockey today. A lot more so than the NHL, actually. There's a bit of breaking news in the NHL that we'll talk about in more detail later. But other than that, it's been quite quiet. I found a few interesting bits of news to talk about for some videos this week. But other than that, yeah, we're mainly going to talk about British hockey today, which is awesome. A few other bits from the international scene, but mainly good old-fashioned British hockey. So, Mr. Gadsby, would you like to take us through the games that took place this last week?
Yes, I'll start with the Elite League because there was a few Challenge Cup ones that we'll come on to in a minute. So starting on Friday in Nottingham, they lost by 4-3 to the Dundee Stars in overtime again. Saturday, Manchester 2, Cardiff 5. Sheffield 0, Coventry 2.
Sheffield night.
Sheffield shut out on. How embarrassing to get shut out on your teddy bear toss night.
God, I haven't seen that before.
Nottingham. Sorry, I've got a bit of. Yeah. Glasgow 4, Belfast 2. Great result for Glasgow.
Yeah.
Milton Keynes 3, Dundee 0, and 5-3 Guildford 1.
It was very much for most of that, it was very much the night of the underdog, wasn't it? Quite a lot of the underdog teams managed to take those victories, yeah.
Yeah. And then Sunday, it's Nottingham 2, Guildford 6,
Whey!
Which was apparently an absolutely appalling game. I passed Chris Ellis on the way back as I was going to the Lions game, and he had like a devil stare, glaring look on his face.
I just love the fact that they allowed 3 in 7 minutes. I was like, right, game's over. Okay.
Yep. That was before I even left to go to the Lions. I was like, well, I don't even need to ask people what the result of this was.
No.
Coventry 2, Dundee 5, and Manchester 4, Belfast 6.
Hey, so that's the Elite League, right?
That's the Elite League, yep.
So I have the Elite League standings here, as of right now.
Okay.
I'll read through these. I'll let you take a bit of a break, Chris. I'm nice like that.
You read those while I load up the Challenge Cup then.
Go for it. So, in first place, we have the Belfast Giants with 42 points in 28 games. Second, we have the Cardiff Devils with 38 points in 25 games. They now can catch and surpass Belfast for first place due to their games in hand. Then third, we have the Nottingham Panthers with 38 points in 30 games. But due to their, three straight OT losses and a regulation loss, they're on a 4-game losing streak, and they're not going to stay there for much longer by the looks of it. Then
you can tell it's December, can't you?
Yeah. Then in fourth, we have the Fife Flyers with 34 points in 27 games. They can catch and overtake Nottingham with the games in hand. Then we have the Guildford Flames in fifth with 29 points in 26 games. They can't catch the Panthers, can they? No, there's only 4 games. Yeah, okay. Then sixth, we have the Dundee Stars. They've had a massive climb up the standings these last few weeks. 28 points in 28 games, going 10 wins, 10 losses, and 8 overtime losses. They know how to pick up those extra points. The Panthers are taking some lessons from them by the looks of it. Then next we have the Sheffield Steelers with 26 points in 27 games. They're just under 500. Then we have the Glasgow Clan with 25 points in 24 games. They're just above 500, but they've played less games than Sheffield. Then we have the Coventry Blaze in 9th position with... is that 9th position? Yeah, it is 9th position, isn't it? 25 points in 26 games. Then we have the Manchester Storm in 10th with 23 points in 27 games. And last but not least, we have the Milton Keynes Lightning with 20 points in 26 games. So that's how the Elite League standings are looking at the moment. In terms of longest winning and longest losing streaks, the Milton Keynes Lightning have won their last 2 games. The Panthers, like I mentioned earlier, have lost their last 4 games. But 3 of them coming with a point on the board. So could it be better, could it be worse. And the Manchester Storm, they have the second longest losing streak with a 2-game losing streak. But other than that, it's all either 1-game win or 1-game loss. So that's the Elite League standings. There you go. You're welcome. Right, go on, Chris.
Okay, so Challenge Cup. This is quarterfinal stage. We had 3 second legs and 1 first leg this week.
Yep.
So starting in Northern Ireland, Belfast, after the 8-0 victory away at Dundee, were pretty much already through, barring a miracle. They won 4-2 on the night to win by 12 goals to 2 on aggregate.
Wait, you mean Dundee didn't win 9-0?
Yeah, Dundee didn't win 9-0. Sorry.
Ah, that sucks.
And then also on Tuesday, Nottingham lost to Manchester by 4 goals to 2, but because they won 6-1 in Manchester the previous week, a bit like Belfast, they're through by 8 goals to 5
they
on
know how
aggregate.
to make it a bloody intense rivalry, don't they? They can never do it easily, can they? They have to make it a really competitive game where the opposing team actually has the opportunity to come and steal it from them, which is great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nottingham. Appreciate that.
Yeah. The only first leg we had was between the Steelers and the Flames. That finished 4-4. A great result for Guildford away in Sheffield.
Yeah.
To take a tie game back to their own barn. And then the final second leg, which was on Friday night, was the Devils against the Clan. Devils went in with a 1-goal aggregate lead, and the Glasgow Clan went to Cardiff and won by a single goal in normal time, and then nicked it short-handed, we should say,
That's incredible.
in overtime
Against
to
the
get
Cardiff
themselves
Devils.
through to the semi-final. So they were 1-0 down, and then the Clan put themselves 3-1 up. Cardiff pulled it back to 3-3, and then Glasgow put themselves 5 goals to 3 up. So they were going through. That was with 2 minutes 45 to go.
Yeah.
Then with Cardiff having pulled them bounds, the empty net extra attacker, Gleason Fournier, with 28 seconds to go, tied it. And so that sent it back to overtime.
Yeah.
And that was tied at 8-8 on aggregate.
But it was a 5-4 lead in the game, but it was tied on aggregate. Just to mention.
Yeah. So it was a 5-4 lead in the game.
So on the scoreboard, you might be like, hang on a minute, but they won. No, but because it's based on the 2-game aggregate, that means they had to play overtime in order to decide who was going to win it.
And then Cardiff take a penalty, and short-handed, Haywood for the Clan goes and puts them puts them through to the semi-finals.
I'm not going to lie, that would have been a fantastic game to watch on Free Sports. Like, if they could... This is where hindsight is always a wonderful thing. It's both a blessing and a curse. Like, if Free Sports could have shown that and got some more casual hockey fans or new hockey fans to watch a game like that, that was, like, fair play. Cardiff didn't win, which of course sucks for them, but fair play to them. They were down by 2 goals twice in that game. They managed to come back and either tie the game or send it to OT. So I think it was a great game by both sides. Both sides showing great offensive skill by potting as many goals as they did. It was more of a goal-scoring game, who could score the most goals, which of course finished with Glasgow taking the victory. The defensive side of the puck wasn't very good for either side, or either team, which... I mean, kind of shows by the, 9-8, 8-7 aggregate? What was it again?
For Cardiff, it was 9-8 in total.
9-8, Jesus Christ. So yeah, I mean, I guess it would make sense to talk in more detail about the Challenge Cup matches. We did want to talk in a little bit more detail about the Challenge Cup matches anyway.
Yep.
Now's a pretty good time to do it.
So we know the semi-finals.
Yes, we know, yeah.
So, because Glasgow are through... And that was the semi-finals are a straight highest seed plays lowest seed. There's no pick your opponent in the semis.
Good.
So Belfast will play Glasgow.
Right.
now that Glasgow have got through, and Nottingham will play the winner of Guildford or Sheffield.
Interesting. And it's important to note that the final Challenge Cup, was it quarterfinal game? Yeah, it must be quarterfinal game. Takes place this Wednesday. It's Guildford versus Sheffield in Guildford at 7:30 p.m. That's going to be a great game.
That's why I think Guildford are going to win.
Yeah, so Chris and I were talking about this after the first leg of the Guildford-Sheffield series took place. Of course, Guildford have home ice advantage. However, what I said to Chris, and I think is still quite an important point, Sheffield have always played quite well when they've gone to visit Guildford. I remember I went to watch the only game that I've watched in Guildford was against the Sheffield Steelers last season, and they destroyed them like 7-2. Of course, that's only one game in a whole host of games that they've played since and before. But because we always talk about Guildford on this as a team that can very much upset, or if you don't take them seriously, they can destroy you, which shown with them killing the Panthers last night. But the interesting thing is, Sheffield seem to be one of the teams that actually knows how to handle Guildford in some ways. I mean, sure, the other big arena teams can beat Guildford. Like, it's not as if Guildford beats the arena teams every single time they meet them. But Sheffield's a little bit more consistent with it, from what I've seen. I know that they've had a bit of a rough start to the season, but I would, to an extent, put that down to them being in a shambles at the beginning of the season anyway. So, like, basically any team beat them at the beginning of the season. So
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I wouldn't really put it down to Guildford being the stronger team there, which in some ways they are. It's more Sheffield being the weaker team and having a lot of stuff going on in the background. But yeah, I mean, so you think Guildford's going to go through?
I would like Guildford to go through.
I would like Guildford to go through, personally.
Wouldn't it be brilliant if, like, Guildford went through and then Glasgow somehow beat Belfast and Guildford beat Nottingham and the final was Glasgow against Guildford?
That would be pretty crazy. I mean...
And there wasn't an arena team in sight.
Yeah, it wouldn't do very well for fans watching it, I don't think, in terms of, like, engagement from the more popular arena teams. I mean, I'd still watch it. I think it's great. But I think Belfast is just too strong of a team. I think Glasgow will put up a good fight, though, for that semi-final. Because Belfast, they're leading the league. They put up 12 goals on Dundee. Glasgow are a very hot and cold team. You never quite know what team you're getting with Glasgow, which is why, for example, you have... I mean, sure, in the first leg of the quarterfinals, they lost by 1 goal. Like, we both said that it was quite good for them that they kept it to a 1-goal aggregate, which worked out for them in the end. But yeah, you never really know what team you're getting with the Glasgow Clan. You can get the team that beats Cardiff in the quarterfinals, or
they beat Belfast in the week.
Yeah, exactly. Or you get the team that, similarly to Belfast against Dundee, puts up 8 goals on them. So yeah, it's a very strange situation going on there. I think Belfast will take that one personally, but I think Glasgow will put up a good fight.
Yeah, they will do.
But in terms of of course, like we've said, we don't actually know the other semi-finalist yet. It's going to be the Panthers against somebody. Yep. I think it's anybody's semi-final, that one.
The thing with that semi-final is that Panthers have beaten both of those sides, but both of those sides have also beaten the Panthers.
Yes, and the Panthers...
You don't know what's going to happen.
And the Panthers are wholly inconsistent.
It's December, so...
Yeah, but it's like...
Play them now.
We've seen since the beginning of the season, like, they'll have a stretch of about 5 or 6 games where they look like the best team in the league. And then they'll have a stretch of 5 or 6 games after that where they look like one of the worst teams in the league. So it's like...
I mean, I heard of a couple of... fans that left 7 minutes in when they went 3-0 down. So
yeah, well, I mean, fair enough. I mean, I've never really been. I guess it's because I've been so far away from hockey rinks all my life. Like, I'm not the sort of person that would leave a rink early, regardless of the score. I mean, like, if that's your thing, fair enough. Like, if you turn up every week, you've got something better that you can do instead of watching your team lose by like 6 goals. Fair enough.
If you're a season ticket holder and you live like 10 minutes from the stadium and you go every week, then yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. But for someone like you who's travelled for like 3 hours to get there, you're not going to leave early, are you?
I'm going to watch this. I mean, I quite like Guildford as a team, so yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean I want them to beat the Panthers every time they play, but they seem to be the team that executed their game plan better than the Panthers. But yeah, so this semi-final between the Panthers and either the Steelers or the Guildford Flames, I think that's going to be the one where we have no idea. Are the Panthers going to turn up and be the team that they've showcased before? Are the Sheffield Steelers, that they're still of course, they're now with head coach Tom Barrasso, they're sitting just under 500 as a team. They still haven't quite found that identity as a team yet. So, of course, they've been in that transition period for a while, but then the question is, how long do you give for a transition period before they actually start playing like they should be playing? I don't know the answer to that. I think the only... a Panthers-Steelers, of course, would be an entertaining semi-final. It always is. Games between them are always an interesting situation. But yeah, like you said, I'd love to see Guildford make it. Second year in the league. Whilst I don't really care about the Challenge Cup that much, whilst I don't really think it's a big thing, it would be really nice to see them have some success and maybe even win some silverware in their second year in the league. Would be pretty incredible. Like, you don't really see many teams that do stuff like that in leagues. Like, we reference every once in a while Vegas going to the Stanley Cup finals. Like, for an expansion team to do that, or a team in its first year of existence or early year of existence, it's just unprecedented. So it would be really cool to see. It's going to be a very interesting semi-final, that one. So yeah, I think once we know the actual semi-finalists, we'll go a bit more in depth in our predictions and why we think so and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But we'll wait till the next podcast that we do to figure out something like that.
Yes, we need to talk to you guys about that later.
Yes, exactly. Giants, Panthers, and Glasgow Clan are through. We're waiting for Wednesday to see what happens there. But it's going to be a very competitive semi-final. Like we said with this year, it's the most competitive we've seen the league in quite a while. And that means that anything can happen, and that just makes the games more exciting. So
it does, yeah.
Great. So anyway, we've talked a bit about the Challenge Cup. We talked a bit about the standings in the league and everything like that. Let's talk about some of the news, shall we, ladies and gents? And I think we'll... News, exactly. Thank you, Chris. We'll rattle through all of the player transfers, the player movement that's taken place in the league. Because I very much... when I write these down for like my topics that I need to get through in the podcast, I write them down like chronologically of when they happened. So the first one being the first one that happens in real time.
We want to rattle through them because we've got a big play under reviews this week.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's a big thing that we want to have a little chat about. We mentioned it a little bit last week. But anyway, so the Glasgow Clan have been quite busy this last week in terms of recruiting and removing players, as it were. So, very, very early last week, the 12th, in fact. So, it was just after the podcast ended, I'm pretty sure. It wasn't that long afterwards or the day after. It's 5 days ago, so it was a couple of days after, excuse me. The Glasgow Clan announced that they had released Josh Grattan from their team. So, I've got it's a very, very short article here from... the Clan's website. The Glasgow Clan have released number 22 Josh Grattan with immediate effect. They would like to wish Josh all the best, very best for the future, and they're in advanced talks with another forward, which we'll get onto in a moment. So, Chris, do you have the stats of Josh Grattan?
I do, and you look at the stats. Is it not for like personal reasons or anything, or is it just?
It literally just says that they've released him with immediate effect.
Because that's surprising to me. Because in the league, he's 23 points from 23 games.
Yeah. I had seen something like that while I was finding this news article. Yeah.
I mean, his plus minus is -8, but I mean, if you include the cup as well, I mean, he's 27 points from 30 games.
Yeah.
He's not the kind of player you'd want to get rid of. He's a point per game.
Exactly. So I think it's very clear that there's something else that has happened behind the scenes here. Whether it's a case of Grattan has got an offer somewhere else. Usually they say when they've got an offer from somewhere else, don't they? So I'm not necessarily sure it's that particular reason. But yeah, Josh Grattan almost a point per game throughout Cup and League. Definitely a point per game through the league, like you said. That's a very strange one. Unless it's a case of he broke one of the team rules or something.
Yeah, there must be something behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's just very clear that They really haven't. They've made it as blunt and as straight to the point as possible. They literally say the Glasgow Clan have released number 22 Josh Grattan with immediate effect. Like, that's all they give towards that.
Yeah, normally, if there's nothing that's gone on, they obviously give a bit more as, oh, it's personal reasons, he's gone home, we wish him all the best for the future, all the rest of it.
Or it's like, oh, they got an offer from this team in Sweden or Finland or Croatia or something like that. Yeah, they haven't mentioned anything like that, so I would imagine there was something else going on behind the scenes there, whether there was whether he butted heads with somebody, whether he didn't follow some of the team rules, whether he did something bad during a game. Of course, we don't watch all of the Glasgow Clan games, so we're not too keyed up on the ins and outs of the Glasgow Clan organisation. But yeah, that's a very, very strange one. Of all of the sort of termination of contracts this year, that's the most surprising one, I think it would be fair to say. And like people are saying in the chat, like, he played one bad game. You don't terminate somebody's contracts, they played one bad game. We wouldn't have any Nottingham Panthers players on the roster if that were the case. So,
well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, every player has a bad game at some point in the season. In a league like this, they play every weekend. So, yeah, there might have been something that happened during a game. I'm very, very confused as to this. It would have been nice if they'd elaborated a little bit more, as opposed to like fans talking on Twitter about what happened. What is there anything else you want to add on this, Chris?
No, not really, to be honest. I mean, I'm as surprised as you are. Maybe something will come out in weeks to come. Maybe he'll say something himself. But on the face of it, it seems very surprising and very abrupt.
Yes, but they said at the end of that article that they were in talks to acquire another forward in order to replace Grattan. And 2 days after the announcement that they had released Josh Grattan, and it's only 3 days ago now, on the 14th of December, the Glasgow Clan announced that they had signed Gilliam Doucet from Milan, which I sent this to Chris and he was like, yeah, this is a great signing.
It's a very, very good signing.
Very good signing. So, I'll read, I've got the article from the Glasgow Clan website. The Glasgow Clan are delighted to announce the signing of Gilliam Doucet for the remainder of the 18-19 season. The 32-year-old forward joins from the Alps Hockey League team Milano Rosolbleu, where he started the season, and he's no stranger to the Elite League, having joined the Hull Stingrays back in 2013 before going on to play for the Panthers and the Cardiff Devils. Last season,
and the Lightning.
Yes, I was getting on to that.
Sorry, right? You paused. I thought you'd missed it.
All right. Last season, the Canadian ice for the Milton Keynes Lightning. You happy, Chris? I got it. Under current Clan head coach Pete Russell, and Pete Russell is very happy to have Doucet back with him. He is wearing number 52, and he will be sponsored by Beatson Cancer Charity. So, yeah, Doucet moving from Milan back to the Elite League. He decided he wanted to come back to the United Kingdom and have a crack with another Elite League team, his fourth Elite League team. Do you have any stats on him?
Yes, I do. Now he's 32 now, so he's getting to the tail end of the peak, so to speak.
Yeah, he's very much inching towards the more twilight years of his career.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the Hull Stingrays in 13-14. In total, including the Cup, 61 games. Do you want to have a guess? 61 games?
61 points.
No, 75.
Wow, nice one. Okay, fair enough.
75 points. No, sorry, 85 points. My mistake.
Okay, 85
points. Then with the Panthers, it was 25 games, 27 points.
Okay.
For the Devils in 15-16, it was 65 games and 55 points, so not quite a point a game there. Right. And then in the 16-17 season, it was 60 games played and only 35 points.
Wow, okay.
But then he went to Milton Keynes. He did there. Then he went to Milton Keynes. It's probably why he left Cardiff. Yeah. But back at Milton Keynes, he played 64 games and got 61 points. So he was back at nearly a point per game there. And then this season, he's, for Milano, 20 games and 19 points so far. So...
Yeah, okay, so he's kind of... I would imagine he's feeling he's too good for the Alps League, or he's not really gaining much from the Alps League, and he's had this offer from an Elite League team that he's never played for, and thought, yeah, why not? I'll give it a crack. And I'm with an old coach that I played with.
I was
going to
say, I think Pete Russell had a big influence on that.
Yeah, and the fact that he essentially had a bounce back year last year from a couple of years of declining point production, and he's thought, you know what? Yeah, I think I'll go to Glasgow with my old coach, and we'll carry on the good old days, essentially. So, of course, if he plays well, this leaves the possibility of him re-signing with the Clan, which, if he plays well, I'm sure Glasgow fans will be very happy with. So, like you said, a very talented player, had a couple of years where he kind of dropped his production slightly. However, like you mentioned, he had a big bounce back year last year, almost going a point per game again. Let's see how he does in this year. This is the first time he's going to Scotland. Compared to some of the other teams, the Hull Stingrays, I don't know a huge amount about the team back when they were in the Elite League. But the Cardiff Devils and the Nottingham Panthers have always been contenders these last few years.
Yes, so I watched him quite a few times, obviously, when he was at the Panthers, and he was a very good player. Not necessarily the fastest, but quite skillful and not afraid to put a check in.
Good.
One of these players where you loved having him on your team, as a Panthers fan, loved it. When I then went to watch them in Cardiff while I was down there at university and he was in a red shirt, you absolutely hated him. He was one of those players.
Yeah. So I guess this will be a very different style of season for Doucet, considering he's not playing with a contending team. Like, Glasgow aren't doing hugely well. They're doing all right, but they're not doing amazingly well. They're not an arena team. So it's been a while since he hasn't played for an arena team within the Elite League, since 2013 essentially. So yeah, I'm expecting Doucet to have a pretty good year, based on the fact that he had a good year last year with Pete Russell, and he's going back to the same coach, and he's going to a stronger roster than he was on last year, but perhaps not as strong as the rosters that he's had in previous years. So maybe it balances out to like a point every sort of 1.5 games, if you know what I mean. As opposed to 2 games or 1 game. But yeah, I think based on what you've said and based on what I've seen, that seems like a pretty good signing. I definitely think he can fill the hole that was left when Grattan was dropped by the team. So let's see how it goes, I guess. We wish him luck, of course. That's the Glasgow Clan's player movement sorted out. Now we move over to Coventry. The Coventry Blaze have been busy once again, ladies and gentlemen. They've been very busy with chopping and changing their roster these last few weeks. And the most recent one comes in the form of Ivan Pusic. So the Coventry Blaze have brought in a new defenseman who arrived from Medvesac Zagreb of the EBEL. Now I'm just going to add, Medvesac Zagreb has been giving up a lot of their players to the Elite League these last few weeks. Like, I think this is either the 4th or 5th player, and we've got another one in a minute that we're going to talk about as well. So they've almost given up about half a dozen players from their roster that have all come back to the Elite League in some fashion. Granted, some of them have been players that have played in the Elite League previously, but this is very strange. What is happening in Zagreb, where all of their players were wanting to leave? Like, Jesus. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they just... after Belfast beat them, they were like, yeah, let's go over there.
we like Britain, yeah, let's just stay here. So, this is a quote by head coach Danny Stewart of the Coventry Blaze. Ivan comes to us from a very good level. He is a reliable and steady defenseman that will improve our back end. He comes up through a strong junior system in the Czech Republic and plays the right way. He will eat some minutes for us on the penalty kill and complement our current group very well. He's still at a young age and is only going to get better. We're looking forward to his arrival next week. So, yeah, he's been brought in to help. We've, of course, seen another defenseman from Zagreb going over to the Milton Keynes Lightning. Czech Republic defensemen seem to be in demand here in the Elite League at the moment. So, we'll see how Pusic does. Like they said, it's looking like he's going to be more of a defensive defenseman, play a lot of minutes, shut down other teams' scoring lines as opposed to putting up points himself. But do you have the stats there for him, Chris?
I do.
Go for it. Can you just read out the stats? I don't really know the sort of player that he is.
Yeah, well, he's a left-handed defenseman, as you've said. So he isn't a big point producer, must be honest.
Yeah.
So far this season, 24 games, only the 2 points.
Okay, interesting. They don't have average time on ice, do they?
No.
Ah, it's a pain. Okay.
It is a little bit. They don't. And then he played for Croatia at the Division 1B World Championships. 5 games, didn't do anything.
Okay, interesting.
At Zagreb on loan the season before, 10 games, just the 1 point.
Right.
At Haverov, 17 games, just the 1 point. So he's not a big points producer.
Which is fine, because you don't want a team where every single player is a point scorer, because then you're going to have people that are trying to do their best to get one up on every single other teammate to score the points. He sounds like a pretty reliable stay-at-home defenseman to me.
Yeah, his plus minus this season is -5 though from 24.
But then again, you could the plus minus is always one that's kind of put as the final the footer of all of it. Because, first of all, that doesn't include power play or penalty killing.
True.
And second of all, that's not an individual stat. That's to do with all of the team on the ice.
Yeah.
So that could be reflective of him playing relatively well, but being on an awful team. Which Zagreb have been making a lot of moves recently.
Yeah. NHL springs immediately to mind where you've just come off and then they score and you haven't even got into position and you get a minus.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be something as simple as that, but. I mean, he sounds like a pretty reliable stay-at-home defenseman, like we said. They're wanting him to be a minute muncher for them, so I would expect him to be getting 15, 20 minutes a night, if that.
Yeah, and he's only 22, so he's got room to grow.
Well, exactly, yeah. So he's very much in the early years of his professional playing career, hopefully. So having that, maybe he wasn't getting the role that he wanted at Zagreb, or maybe it wasn't working out the way it was supposed to, and he's going to get a bigger role. It's kind of like sending him down to the minors in a way. Like, he's getting a bigger role on the team.
Yeah.
He's getting to play more minutes, play in more key situations on the penalty kill, in the final minutes of the game where it's really important, and you say if you've got a 1-goal lead, you learn how to deal with stuff like that. So I think it's a pretty good signing for the Coventry Blaze. Of course, we'll see how that goes, and we'll see what Blaze fans think of him as the weeks go on. But it's looking like he's going to be here for the rest of the season, so we wish him luck. And the final signing news came after the Sheffield Steelers teddy bear toss, which didn't go so well. I really think, just on a smaller note, save the teddy bear tosses to at the end of periods now. Elite League. Don't do a hole if your team scores a goal, because it clearly hasn't worked twice. Once, okay, that's the team's fault. Twice, there might be a problem here. But anyway, after the Sheffield Steelers lost 2-0 to the Coventry Blaze, funnily enough, they decided that the Sheffield Steelers social media and the team decided they wanted to give their fans a bit of good news after getting shut out on Teddy Bear Toss Night. And they decided, you know what, we're going to announce that we have signed John Armstrong. Yes, they've brought back John Armstrong on an 18-month contract, I might add. So he's here for the rest of the season, and he's playing through the 1920 season also. So he's got a lot of time to be back with the Steelers. It's clear that he wanted to come back and wanted to think about more than just this season, as he signed for 18 months. And yeah, he played 2 seasons in Sheffield while he was studying at the University of Sheffield before he left in the summer to go and join, funnily enough, Medvesac Zagreb. But he's left the team again. I would love to see their... Because on Elite Prospects, they have their, transaction lists, don't they?
They do? Do you want me to go and have a look at them?
Can you just find out how many red arrows they've got with these players leaving? It's bloody ridiculous, I would imagine.
Yep.
So, while he's getting that, just so you know, Armstrong concluded negotiations with the Steelers late on Friday, and he will arrive in the UK either today or tomorrow. I haven't checked the Steelers' Twitter enough today in order to find out if he's actually arrived yet. Oh, he has arrived. He did arrive earlier today. Big John has arrived in the UK. So he's back. This is another example. We've seen it with Ben O'Connor, now with John Armstrong. This is another example of, let's bring the old boys back and see if we can get the band back together. I mean, it's not quite like that because they've got a new coach, obviously. But clearly Tom Barrasso thought that John Armstrong was a good player back when he was with Sheffield, and he's a good player for them to stick around with the team full time for the next 18 months at least. So, yeah, this is very interesting. So, what do you think about this one, Chris? By the way.
Yeah, I think I mean, he was almost a point per game for Sheffield when he was there.
Right.
So again, I think he's 30. It's a steadying the ship job. He's got experience. He can help the youngsters out.
Yeah.
And they know he's reliable with point production. But just interesting on your Zagreb thing, how many players, right, since let's go from the when Ivan Sijan went to the Lightning.
Okay, which was a
on the 28th of November, so only
right.
3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago.
Yep. Okay.
How many players have left Zagreb?
How many players have left? Do you have the place in the standings for them?
I can get them. I'm sure.
How many players have left the
Zagreb
team?
are what, in the EBL?
Yes.
Yeah.
That flash scores.
I'm getting it.
Yeah, flash scores. It's a great app.
Austria.
I really do like it.
Did tell you.
No, yeah, I didn't really have a reason to get it beforehand, but
yeah, that's true.
Now for the podcast that we're keeping an eye on Kirky and everyone else, I like having it. So go for it.
Zagreb are second bottom of the EBL.
Right, okay, so they've probably had a lot of change in their roster. So how many players have left?
Since the 28th of November.
So the 28th of November. I'm going to go really high with this estimate.
Go on then.
15.
Ooh, 14.
14 players have left the organisation.
14. How many in that time have joined since the 28th of November?
10.
Do you want actual signings or loans?
Both.
Okay, actual signings, 0.
Wow. Jesus.
Loans, 6. So there's still 8 players down.
Well done, Zagreb. Great job, lads. And our derp team of the week goes to Medvesac Zagreb.
Oh,
Jesus, what is going on with that team?
14 have gone. So
no wonder they lost in the Continental Cup.
So on the 28th, Sijan went to the Lightning.
Right.
Then on Thursday the 6th, we had some French guy go to Grenoble.
Some French guy. Okay, carry on.
Antonin Manavin.
Right, okay, some French guy, yep.
Friday the 7th, Mario Puskaric went to the Manchester Monarchs.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's the ECHL, yep.
Tuesday the 11th, Nikolai Letnovdinov.
Just seeing you pronounce that name. Oh, wow. Where did he go then?
He left. It says on the note.
He was just like, fuck this, I'm out. I'm gone. Your team sucks. Bye. Wow.
Wednesday the 12th, Sebastian Sylvester and Mike Aviani both left.
Okay.
On the Thursday the 13th, Jan Sauvé left.
Oh, okay, interesting. Where is he
He's gone to Villaracha.
Right, okay, we'll have to let Max know about that.
And Matteo Corbeil left.
Okay.
That was on Thursday the 13th.
Right.
Then on Friday, Krajcik went to the Blade, Lustinin just left, Deutsch just left, Maudlin went to the Stavanger Oilers, and then on the Saturday, Kudelka went to Innsbruck and Armstrong went to the Steelers. So they lost 6 players in 48 hours.
So the only thing I can imagine is it's either because their team is doing really badly and everyone wants to jump ship, or they must be having like really bad financial issues. Like they must have been like, yeah, we're going to sign all of these players from all over Europe. We're going to give them really good contracts. We're going to really appeal to get them here. And then they don't actually have the money to pay them. So all the players have gone by. Yeah. Which is well within their right to do so.
These players they've got on loan, 5 out of the 6 of them are coming from, in fact, actually all of them are coming from KHL Zagreb.
Right, okay, yeah, they're not. That's the team that isn't actually in the KHL. It stands for like something hockey in.
It's not actually, but they're all. Okay. I was wondering what their ages were, and I was wondering if they were all youngsters. But one of them's 34, so that's gone.
It's either youngsters or like fringe players.
Yeah,
on the team,
basically.
Wow. Okay, we kind of went a bit off topic on that, but yeah, Zagreb, like sort your act out, lads. Don't know what's going on there. I'm surprised they actually have a roster to ice for the games at the moment. So,
I
Chris,
know.
what do you think about John Armstrong going back to the Steelers? You mentioned it a little bit, but feel free to go into more detail if you want.
Yeah, as I said, I think he'll be good for them. He'll steady the ship there, and provide some advice to the youngsters, and he's reliable to put points up. So I think the Steelers seem to have sorted themselves out.
The only thing they seem to be missing quite a lot is goal scoring, I would argue. They have some guys that can score. They have some guys that, like, they've got Dowd and O'Connor and God knows how many other people that are good at putting the puck in the net. The problem is they don't do it consistently enough. Like, they don't have that one guy that's like, I can score a goal every game or I can get a point every game consistently throughout a season, which of course is a difficult thing to find in any league. But yeah, so I like you said, I think this is a really good signing for them. I think it's going to work out really nicely for the team. We'll see how John Armstrong does. He's going to be playing in their games. What's their next game? It doesn't say here. I thought it might have done. So
Sheffield, they've got Guildford on Wednesday.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. So maybe he'll have an impact in that game. I'm sure Steelers fans would love that if that happened in that game.
Yep.
So that's all the news in terms of the players moving to and from this league and leaving.
So much British stuff to talk about this week.
Yeah, there really is. And some of it is follow-up stuff, to be fair, including this one. So last week, our big discussion topic was to do with the Milton Keynes Thunder Ice Hockey Club and their fundraiser in order to try and raise £10,000 in order to keep the team afloat for the remainder of the season. The good news is they made it. They made their £10,000 target. They're very happy. Fans of the team are very happy. 423 likes on their tweet that announced it, which is pretty incredible for a minor league hockey team to announce something like that and get such a response. Of course, like we said, we're very happy to see them remain in the league. We have our reservations about crowdfunding crowdfunding and getting the fans to pay for stuff.
Yes, there's very much two sides to that, and
yes.
I mean, some people come down one side. I know that the Lions staff have been quite not on the side of crowdfunding.
Yes, and I would also argue that I'm not on the side of crowdfunding. It's a legitimate way. Like I said last week, if people want to help support and give a little bit more money to help keep a team afloat, that's well within your right. It's your money. As long as you're not hurting anybody with it or trying to harm anybody by spending it in a certain way, you can do whatever you want with that money because it's yours. Who am I to tell you what you can do with your money? But like we mentioned last week, it's a very interesting thing about essentially getting your fans to pay for your debts, and we were very much concerned that it might set a bad precedent because we've now had two teams in the British minor leagues that have had this situation happen. So we're very happy that the Milton Keynes Thunder are sticking around. I think they're going to have to sit down and have a long, hard chat about what happens from next season onwards, because clearly they don't have the infrastructure there at the moment without asking the fans to bail them out. So
the league, I would suspect, and having spoken to the guys in Telford on Sunday night from the Tigers, it does look as though the league is going to reshake over summer, because a lot of the old EPL teams want to go back to a national league. Telford themselves don't, because it failed once, so it should. So there is going to be some kind of looking at it. Exactly what that's going to be, obviously, yet we don't know. Yeah. As we've said so many times, there is no perfect solution, because if there was one, it would be implemented.
Exactly. So we thought we'd just update you on that. Milton Keynes Thunder have managed to reach their crowdfunding goal. And we moved to another team within the minor leagues. I thought I noticed this on my Twitter feed a couple of days ago, or like the day after it was announced. And I thought it was nice to bring up because, like we say, we like to talk about British hockey a lot on this podcast. So the Peterborough Phantoms and the Sheffield Steel Dogs went against each other on December the 16th, 2018. And the Peterborough Phantoms have won the Autumn Cup. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Autumn Cup, Chris?
Yeah, so it's not like the Challenge Cup. So there's several cups in the NIHL. You've got the Autumn Cup. You've got the North Cup. I believe there's a South Cup as well. Krajcik will be able to tell me that because I don't follow the South as much. But these are they're not invitational cups, but you can enter them if you want. So the Lions don't. They literally only play the league. You've got teams like Billingham and Sheffield who will play in the North Cup and in the Autumn Cup, and so basically it's regional, so it's North and South until you've got one team in the North and one team in the South, and then they have a two-legged final to see who wins the Autumn Cup. So it's a bit like East and West with the Stanley Cup, but North and South. Right,
got it. Okay, so the Peterborough Phantoms of the South beat Sheffield of the North by a aggregate of 6-5. The final score was 4-3. They took a 2-2 draw after the first leg, and then Peterborough won 4-3 in the second leg, which is pretty cool. So I just thought it'd be nice to mention that. I don't really have anything else to add on that. The man of the match for the Phantoms was number 33, Jordan Marr, and the Steel Dogs man of the match was number 34, Dimitri Zimodstra.
Zimodstra, yeah, he's their netminder. He's not really played that much this season. Now I've got my logbook here. Hang on. So Zimodstra, he's iced 3, 6, 8 times. Although some of those were backups. He's done absolutely nothing all season, but he's taken 2 penalty minutes against Telford on the 9th of September.
Oh.
And but yeah, he's a solid keeper, to be honest.
All right, awesome. And he gets man of the match, even though they lost. So. I never understand that man of the match things for winners and losers. Why don't you do 3 stars of the game? I think it makes more sense. But that's just
because that's more expensive. Because man of the matches, they get a case of beer each.
Just give it to the first star. Then you actually save half amount of the beer cost that you have the entire season. There you go. Anyway, that's a discussion for another podcast. There was a bit of news that was announced this last week or so regarding youth hockey with Team Great Britain that I thought it might be good to mention because I can guarantee that some of you might be interested. I certainly am, and Chris certainly is, so we thought we may as well bring this to your attention. Free Sports, you know, the channel that does NHL games, does the Elite League games, of course.
the channel in the UK that cares about hockey.
Yeah, the only channel in the UK that cares about, besides, well, Premier Sports is their sister channel.
They're the same thing, really, aren't they?
Yeah,
so.
I'm just going to, before we get into this news, Premier Sports, like, I used to watch Premier Sports. I don't watch Premier Sports anymore because I'm subscribed to NHL TV. Please stop blacking out any games that you have, Premier Sports. I know you want to have, like, exclusive rights for them, but I'm not going to pay an extra subscription fee when I pay, like, 20 quid a month to get NHL, and you keep playing New York Rangers games that I can't watch, so please stop doing that. It's very infuriating. I wanted to watch the Rangers game against Vegas last night, because it was at 5:30 PM our time. It was, like, a nice matinee game for them. And I'm like, yeah, brilliant, I want to watch this. And then Premier Sports go, oh, we've got this game, you should come and watch it. And I'm like, no, I'm not paying an extra 10 quid a month to get, like, one live NHL game, like, every weekend, whereas I can just watch the NHL whenever I bloody want, and it's, like, double the price.
The rants are coming in the play under review. Calm yourself.
Fight me, Premier Sports. But anyway, Free Sports, I love Free Sports. Free Sports is great. Free Sports is so much better.
You just need to hire us.
Yeah, exactly. So the Team Great Britain Under-20 squad will be going to the IIHF Under-20 World Championships for Division 2 Group A in Tallinn next month during January. And Free Sports is going to be showing all 5 of Team Great Britain's games, which I think is absolutely brilliant. If you're interested in the development of youth hockey within the country and you want to see the sort of up-and-coming players to the Elite League and the hockey world in general from Great Britain, and you want to see them on the international stage, now's your chance. It's going to be, they are playing against Estonia, Korea, Lithuania, Romania, and Spain between the 13th and the 19th of January at the Tondiraba Ice Hall in Tallinn. And I've got the times for the games. If you can look at Free Sports' website, they've got an article on it. If not, just listen to what I'm saying and jot them down at the moment. So their first game is on Sunday the 13th of January against Lithuania at 6 PM on Free Sports.
Can't watch that.
Then the next game is Monday at 2:30 PM, which is the 14th of January. Then the next game is Wednesday against Estonia, which is delayed coverage due to the live EIHL game, and they're going to figure out when they're actually going to show that one. They're still figuring out when that game's going to be shown. Then the next game is Thursday, which is Romania against GB, which is at 2:30 p.m. And then there's a game on Saturday the 19th at 11 a.m. So, which is against Spain.
I can't watch that.
So
yeah, I might just have to have a very small window in the corner of my work computer or something.
Or just record
We all did it for the World Cup.
Or just record it and watch it later.
No, because then someone on social media will spoil it.
To be honest, it'll probably be me.
Yeah, that's true. It will be. Yeah,
it'll probably be me sending you a message going, "They won."
Damn you!
Like, fuck. But yeah, so it gives you the chance to watch Liam Kirk, who will be on the roster. Guys like Kieran Brown, will Josh Tetlow be there? I assume he would be, because he's under 20, right? I don't know. Well, we'll get Chris on it. He'll find out for us.
So, what? Sorry, I was busy replying to Krajcik. Go on.
Josh Tetlow will be in the under 20 lineup, right?
We read out the under 20s. I don't recall seeing him there.
I thought he was under 20. I don't know.
I just don't recall seeing him there. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know. But you'll get to see Liam Kirk again, who of course has been most recently lighting it up with the Peterborough Petes of the Ontario Hockey League. There was a really good article written about him by the New York Times as well recently.
Yes,
which
I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
But I've heard a lot of good things about it. It's being shared around all the British hockey areas on Twitter. So that's awesome.
Josh Tetlow has the same birthday as me.
Yeah, 13th to the 19th of January. Watch Team Great Britain under 20s. I will. It's going to be good, and we'll talk about it.
I don't think he's in the side because his birthday is the 12th of January.
Right. Okay.
And he will turn 21 the day before the tournament.
Oh, that sucks. Oh, wow. Fair enough. We'll probably, it'll be one of our topics to discuss with the podcast in the new year. So if you do miss the games, we'll keep you up to date, don't worry. But that's everything to do with Great British Hockey today in terms of specific news that's taken place. So we now got our play under review, our little debate topic that we like to have every single week. And this one's a bit shit, gotta be honest.
BBC, right.
Go. So Chris, do you want to explain it? Because you sound like you want to talk about this a lot more than I do.
Oh, right, I thought you really wanted to as well.
No, I want to talk about it, but you seem a lot more, ready to go.
So, as many of you will know, this Sunday was BBC Sports Personality of the Year.
I decided to do the stupid thing and actually watch some of it. I've never watched it before, and I instantly regretted it.
I was at the lines, and I knew I didn't miss anything.
No, you really didn't. It was shit.
So, Great British Ice Hockey fans were already annoyed because getting back-to-back promotions and getting to the World Championships for the first time in 24 years apparently isn't as great a sporting moment as 11 people in red shirts that couldn't beat Colombia in 120 minutes and had to kick a ball into a net 5 times instead. Yeah. Off the back of that, we then had, are they going to get Team of the Year? And not only did they not win Team of the Year, they didn't even get a nomination for Team of the Year because, again, 11 men that came 4th in a World Cup and didn't win anything got a nomination. But, people who won back-to-back promotions and have got there for the first time in 24 years didn't get a nomination.
Yep.
Now, it's been widely discussed on social media, and it's even Pete Russell has blasted the BBC here for refusing to acknowledge his team. And the BBC did have a quote. They said that they have this difficulty every year, and they try to get a wide variety of sports in, but obviously they can't please everybody, and they try to be as diverse as possible. But they did spend 10 minutes on a feature about the Lions rugby tour. Can I just say that quote from the BBC is a load of bollocks. Carry on. So it's a case of kind of, what does UK hockey have to do to get any form of recognition? It's not even that they didn't get a nomination, they didn't even get a mention. Nope. So I'll let you carry on, Chris, but I'll just put forward the question that I wanted to put forward for the
for the discussion, because of course, like with this debate, I always put on a question topic, and then of course we discuss it. You guys discuss it in the chat, and we talk about that. So the question I wanted to give, and I think Chris will give me a very apt answer afterwards. So like you mentioned, hockey didn't receive, well, ice hockey specifically, didn't receive a single nomination, and like you said, even a mention at all during the entire Sports Personality of the Year awards. With the BBC yesterday. So, Chris, how ridiculously unfair is this?
Oh, it's ice hockey in general, plus Liam Kirk for young sports. We spoke about this when it first happened.
Yep.
Like, Liam Kirk not getting young sports personality.
Which is bollocks.
Yeah, you've got... I mean, Nottingham didn't even get a nomination when they won the European Cup. And that had never happened before.
Can I just add, before you carry on, Chris and I don't care that they wouldn't have won. Like,
no.
We don't care, like, it's just the fact that they actually get mentioned. You know? Like, just give us a shout, guys. Carry on.
Yeah. So, Liam Kirk didn't get anything. We didn't get anything for Sporting Moment of the Year because, you know, Farmer sending us through with 17 seconds to go isn't, you know, an important
I think Aaron
moment.
Murphy's call on that should, hands down, have won it anyway. Like, his call on that was fucking incredible. It was so, like, you could tell it meant so much to him and the entire fanhood in this country that Farmer scoring that goal with however many seconds left was, like, that. It was unprecedented, and it's clear that that meant a huge amount to the British hockey community. Like we said last week, we weren't expecting to win that tournament. We were expecting to just do enough to stay in, go back next year, maybe do a little bit better. We went above and beyond, or the team went above and beyond what they were supposed to do, and they won it. And they're going up against Canada and Sweden and the United States. We're going to get decimated next year, but that's not the point. We now get the chance to see if we can compete with some of, if not the best international teams in the entire world. And the BBC, I mean, I don't really care about the BBC. I don't really watch many of their things anyway. Like, they clearly have... they clearly go with what's the most popular. I think that's quite clear. And they go for what's the most marketable. They're paid for by taxes and everything. Of course, I don't know that 100%. But they're like... Are they government funded?
Well, that's what do you think your TV license is for the BBC?
Exactly. So they're paid for essentially by the people and by the government.
Yep.
I'm not going to get hugely political into this because it's not really that relevant. It's just the fact that it's clear that, like, we're a league that struggles to get a webcast for every single bloody game that's being shown. If we can't even get that, we're not going to get a mention on BBC or anything like that. I think the regional BBCs are good. BBC Wales are very good, and BBC Northern Ireland and Scotland are very good at bringing attention to their domestic teams. I don't think the ones in England are very good at it, because there's just so many other... Oh, but we need to know what Harry Kane ate for breakfast. Or we need to know what Lewis Hamilton did when he went to the toilet yesterday. Like, nobody cares. Like Chris mentioned, Team of the Year, we don't give a shit if they win or not. It's just the fact that they need to be recognised. Like, some people might be like, oh, get over it. Like, oh, it's just a nomination. What does it matter? The fact is, the sport can't grow if people don't fucking know it exists. And that's the problem that this sport has in this country. You could talk to, like... I would argue, and this is a rough estimate, you could talk to like 3/4 of the people in this country and go, did you know that we have a domestic ice hockey league that's done this? No, I had no idea. God, if I'd known that, I would have watched more of it. They don't know because nobody fucking tells them.
Right, I'm Team of the Year. Sorry, not Team of the Year. Moment of the Year. Some of them I agree with, some of them I didn't. And I think there's some that... It's the moment, and that GB hockey should have been in there. Personally, I agree with the netball, because they scored in the last second to win gold for the first time in Australia and take the medal off Australia.
I can agree. I don't really like netball. I don't really care about it, but you make a good point. And like you said, last minute game winner makes sense. Yeah.
Now, to me, and this is nothing against Tyson Fury himself, right? Because I know he's been for everything and he's come back. But he didn't win. He drew.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, credit to the man. He's obviously been through a lot this last little while. I don't know a huge amount about the story, but I've looked up a little bit into it as the time has gone on. He sounds like he's been through hell and back, essentially, to get back to where he is today. And the fact that he drew is a respectable thing, considering where he was however many months ago. But like you mentioned, it's not a sporting moment of the year if he didn't win.
Yeah. And like the England football team, they won a penalty shootout. Well, they came
No one gives a
fourth.
shit. No one gives a shit. We didn't win.
They then lost in the semi-final and lost in the third place match. They finished fourth.
Yeah, it's like, team of the year. They came fourth. They did slightly better than they usually do. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. And Alistair Cook, I mean, I enjoyed the cricket, and I do like Alistair Cook. And yes, getting a century on his final innings was nice. But it wasn't like his first ever century. He had like 50 of them before.
Yeah, like it's one of those,
just played well for an afternoon.
Yeah, it's like one of those. Of course, I don't know a huge amount about cricket because I think it's shit, but that's beyond the point. So it was his last century before he retired, essentially.
No,
right?
It was his last game. He retired after that game.
So I can see why that was a choice, because it's like he did this really good thing, which is of course a difficult achievement for most cricketers to complete, and it was his last game. It's like the perfect way to cap off his incredible career. I get that, but they didn't put the game-winning goal of the World Championships to put Great Britain through. Like, I get that we didn't win the World Championship. To be honest, even if we beat Canada and Sweden and everything and won the fucking World Championships, we still wouldn't get a mention.
Well, I mean, there's some. The BBC are good at a local level of following ice hockey. Nottingham are decent at it. I mean, not necessarily radio, but Nottingham as a whole are decent at it. Obviously, Wales are really good.
Yeah.
And Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's just on a national level where it's not there yet. Epitomised at the Winter Olympics. We've joked about this so many times.
Yeah.
And until we get up to that point, then it's not going to get recognition. But we can't get to that point unless some people start. It's the age-old thing when you come out of university of, well, you can't do this job because you've not got enough experience.
Yep.
And it's like,
oh, I've heard that a lot.
if nobody gives me any experience, I can't get any.
Yeah,
it's like, you're not going to attract the BBC until you get recognition from people like the BBC.
Yeah, the problem is, and I'll give the BBC credit. There is a hell of a lot of sport going on in this country. There's a huge range of sports, from cricket to netball to swimming to cycling to football to rugby to hockey to field hockey. Like, there's so many sports taking place in the United Kingdom at the moment. So I can understand to an extent that it's very difficult to find that, to be able to properly showcase every single sport. Like, give the BBC their due. That's not an easy thing to do. However, and a big however on this, what I would say is, how many of these sports or how many of these seasons play during the winter? I don't have a number, and I know that there's quite a lot of them, but why not? Let's do a common sense thing. Oh, when it's summer, let's showcase football and cricket, because they're playing during the summer, and we always have either Euro or World Cup tournaments taking place every few years or so. That we can show, kids, you can go out and play football after you've watched the game. We can inspire you to go and try and train and become the best people you can be. Hockey doesn't play during the summer, so you don't need to worry about advertising hockey during the summer. That's fine. We'll leave that to the football and the cricket and everything else. Oh, but when winter comes round and all the hockey rinks go out in all the major cities around the country, let's start talking about ice skating and ice hockey. Then you can get people interested in it during the winter months, and then they might go and sign up and actually go and do something. And then they might be like, oh, let's advertise a sport that's relevant to the time of the year. You know? Like, it's really not that difficult. Like, I mean, of course I'm biased towards hockey, but I'd rather know the latest scores from the Elite League or from the NIHL than the latest transfer rumours from the Premier League. Because they're rumours, they're not true. They're just somebody making an opinion on something or a prediction on something that may or may not be substantiated by some sort of evidence, you know?
Yeah. I mean, kids are getting interested. There are over 200 kids in the Nottingham Ice Hockey Club from under 9s through to under 18s.
Wow.
So there is, it's really growing and it's really strong. My thing is, and again, I mean, I watch, BBC Breakfast every morning when I'm, funnily enough, having breakfast.
You're such an old man.
But it's
I watch
more
YouTube videos when I eat my breakfast.
It's more for the weather and the travel, to be honest.
Yeah,
I've got an hour
touche.
commute every day.
Touche.
Now, Mike Bushell, who's like the sports guy on BBC Breakfast, he will go and, I mean, he has been to ice hockey before, fair play. And if I'm wrong on this, someone will correct me, but I don't recall them mentioning it when we won. I don't recall it.
No.
I don't recall it. However, he will go to a local underwater hockey club and they'll do a big feature on that. And I don't recall them, but I think it's something to work on. I mean, Free Sports is doing a great job. Let's take nothing away from Free Sports.
But the problem with something like Free Sports is the majority or 95% of the people that are tuning in are people that are hockey fans already
interested. Yeah.
So like it's great for fans like you and me and the people watching the podcast that go, I'd love to see some British hockey. I've been waiting to watch my favourite team from the Elite League play. It's their turn to play whoever this fortnight on Free Sports. I'm going to sit down and watch it. Or like two teams that you don't really know much about. It's your one time in the season to get a proper look at the two teams.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to sit down and watch it. Like me, for example, I've watched most of, if not all of the Free Sports Elite League games so far this season. Like, I've taken the time, I've had the chance to be able to sit down and watch them all. But new fans or people that know hockey exists but aren't necessarily that interested in it, they're not going to sit down and watch the games.
Yeah, that's the other problem is, I mean, it's nothing that Free Sports can do about it, but they're on like channel 64 now.
Yeah.
And casual people don't scroll that far because you think, it's just all the rubbish channels from 40 onwards.
Exactly. But also, it's a case of the best way to get people to start asking questions is to keep saying stuff. Like if you see, all they need to hire is an ice hockey reporter for BBC that goes, here's the late, and then they tweet like every week the latest scores.
I don't even need to do that. I'll do it for free. I don't care.
Exactly. It's like if they did that, then people might be like, oh, okay. People like hockey fans might tag their friends that aren't necessarily hockey fans, and then they go, okay, right, and if I see it in my newsfeed every week, I might start to become interested in it. Sure, that might have the opposite effect and go, I don't want to see this anymore, can you stop doing this? But hockey, like we say, like so many people say, hockey's that sport that you kind of are a bit unsure on, but then you actually go and see a game and you fall in love with it. Like, I don't know many people that go to a hockey game and go, I didn't enjoy that.
I've never known anybody go to an ice hockey game and not enjoy it.
Like, I know several people that I've taken to hockey games before that aren't really huge sport people, and they come away from it, and then a little while down the line they say, like, you know what, why don't we go to another game at some point? Like, it's not completely my cup of tea. Like, I enjoyed it while I'm not a sporty person. Like, they enjoyed it while they were there. But let's go do it again, because it's an experience. It's not just the player on the ice. There's none of the like violent hooliganism of sport, of football.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like everybody getting on and enjoying it.
Yeah, ice hockey is the only sport that my girlfriend will watch with me.
Really?
And it's her suggestion to go 99% of the time.
You see, you've got a keeper there, Chris.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to come to the football? Oh, no chance. Do you want to come to the ice hockey? Yeah, when are we next going to the ice hockey?
Exactly. Like, it's crazy. I think we'll move on from this topic now, but
yeah, because it's already
like
one thing I'll say, BBC, right? The one issue I've got with that programme is the word personality.
Yes.
Because it's not sports personality. Andy Murray won. He won Wimbledon and went, oh yeah, I'm so happy. I've just won Wimbledon. This is absolutely incredible. Thank you to everybody.
Yeah.
It's not personality, and I think that needs to change.
Why don't we just call it BBC's Athletes of the Year?
Yeah, or Sporting Awards, or
there's the sport awards, like I mean, the BBC should clearly hire us because we know what we're talking about. Right, anyway, we move from the sports personality of the year to across the pond, very briefly, to the NHL. There isn't really a huge... Well, there's been a few little bits of information that has come out from the National Hockey League. There's a few pieces of information that I'm doing more commentary reaction style videos. One's going up tonight. I'll talk about that in proper detail at the end. I've got another one that I should be doing tomorrow that will go out hopefully tomorrow. So keep an eye on them. But anyway, in terms of the actual league, the Rangers aren't doing very well. I wasn't expecting them to.
I don't know. You were bottom like a few weeks ago, so
yeah, we've strung together too many OT losses. We can't close games anymore.
Okay.
Which is our problem. We're in that growing pain stage because of course we've got a very young roster. To an extent, of course we've still got some of the veterans there. But yeah, still some growing pains taking place there. We're kind of like where Toronto was at like 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a rough stage. We're still somewhat competitive. All we need is a bit of a winning streak again to get us back in competition, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, we'll go by division, actually. We usually go by league, but I'm going by division because screw the rules, it's my podcast. Anyway, so in the Eastern Conference, the Metropolitan Division, we have Washington in first place with 43 points, Columbus in second with 37 points, Pittsburgh in third with 36 points. They've kind of bounced back a little bit. They have been a very interesting team this season to look at so far. The Islanders are 4th with 34 points. Carolina are 5th with 33 points. The New York Rangers are 6th with 33 points. The New Jersey Devils are 7th with 29 points. And 8th place are Philadelphia in the Metropolitan Division with 28 points. So there's about 8 points separating third place in the division to the bottom. So still everything to play for at the moment. Philadelphia we'll talk about in a little bit more detail later on because something was announced recently. We're literally like an hour before the podcast began, so we'll get into that. Then the Atlantic Division, we have Tampa Bay, who's actually leading the league as well with 52 points. They are playing some great hockey at the moment. Steve Yzerman has made a great stamp on that team. I mean, he's not there anymore, but Jesus. Buffalo is second with 45 points. Third is Toronto with 44 points. Montreal is fourth with 39 points. Boston fifth with 38 points. Detroit are sixth with 33 points. Ottawa are seventh with 32 points. And eighth are Florida with 30 points. So that's the Eastern Conference.
So the wild card, just quickly, the wild card then in the East belongs to Montreal and Boston. Interestingly, that both the wild card slots are from the Atlantic, and both the teams in the wild card slots have more points than second place in the Metropolitan.
It's very interesting. The Metropolitan Division has been one of the most competitive divisions for the last few seasons, but now we've kind of got Pittsburgh, for example. They're starting to see their window coming to an end. Washington, of course, are still staying competitive. Carolina can just never seem to get it sorted because it's Carolina. New York Islanders, there's a lot of teams that are kind of going through rebuilds or retools at the moment in the Metropolitan Division. Washington and arguably Columbus are the only real Stanley Cup contending teams from the Metropolitan Division. So, yeah, that's why they are a lot different to the to years past. Crocky Gamer, I do watch Post to Post sometimes. They're quite good.
Yes.
Not as good as me, but there you go. No, they're good. They're a good channel. The Western Conference now. Winnipeg are leading the Central Division with 46 points. Nashville are second with... did I say 46 points? I don't know. Winnipeg had 46 points. I'll just double check that. Nashville second with 45 points. Colorado are third with 42 points. Minnesota are fourth with 36 points. Dallas are fifth with 35 points. St. Louis, the car crash that is the Blues, 28 points in 31 games. And the Chicago Blackhawks, 26 points for 7th place in the the Central Division, I should say. How the mighty continue to fall, ladies and gentlemen. To be fair, they got 3 cups in 5 years. I wouldn't complain. Then, last but certainly not least, we have the Pacific Division. Calgary are topping the Pacific with 46 points for first place. San Jose, 41 points in 34 games. Third place, Anaheim, 41 points. Also, fourth is Vegas with 40 points, so they're finding a bit of form again. Beat the Rangers in overtime yesterday. Thanks, Premier Sports, for not letting me see it. 39 points in 34 games for Edmonton to take 5th place. Vancouver have 36 points for 6th place. Arizona, 30 points for 7th place. And last and, least, is the LA Kings with 25 points to take bottom of the league once again.
Yep,
They're
wild card, both again in the Pacific, Vegas and Edmonton.
There you go. So that's the way the league looks. We're about 10 games off from being halfway through the season. 8, 9, maybe 10 games off being halfway through the season. We've, of course, got the Winter Classic coming up in a few weeks, or as I should call it, the Chicago Classic. That's going to be a very strange one. We've got one of the bottom teams in the league taking on a perennial playoff contender. So let's see how that goes. I am actually a big fan of the Winter Classic. I do like it. I know a lot of people are annoyed with it now because it's been running for, this will be its 11th year, I think, that the Winter Classic has been a thing. I personally quite like it. I think it's nice. It's like a tradition on New Year's Day to watch. I don't like the fact that Chicago are in it all the time, but neither does anyone except Chicago fans. Well, even most Chicago fans are getting annoyed with that. But yes, so that is a look at the standings. The only other piece of information that there is to talk about, and we'll talk about it to an extent, is the Philadelphia Flyers announced that they fired head coach Dave Hakstol about an hour and a half ago. And there were some reports, there were some rumours going around Twitter and everything like that, that the next coach of the Flyers was supposedly going to be Joel Quenneville, the ex-coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. However, those were proven to be completely fake. Quenneville got, or people reached out to Quenneville and had a chat with him, and he said, "I don't know what on earth you're talking about. I'm not the head coach of the Flyers at the moment, anyway." So that was quickly debunked. However, the Philadelphia Flyers did come out with an official statement about an hour ago saying that they had indeed fired head coach Dave Hakstol, but they have replaced him with Scott Gordon, which I believe was one of the assistant coaches. So he's going to be taking over the job in the interim, and they may or may not sign somebody else for the remainder of the season, or they'll look for somebody to sign long-term during the off-season. So, Chris, do you have any thoughts about the firing of Dave Hakstol?
Well, they needed a change.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the players have come out. I mean, Andrew McDonald said that their shortcomings are what led to him being dismissed. We know we have the talent in here to be a good team, and we're not getting it done.
I mean, Andrew McDonald doesn't, but fair point.
Well, so unfortunately, he took the. That's true. He took the fall from it.
Yeah.
And then the general manager Chuck Fletcher says he expects
the new general manager Chuck Fletcher as well. We mentioned him last week.
He expects Scott to be the head coach for the remainder of the year.
Ah, okay then. Right. Well, we'll see how that goes then.
Yeah. So I mean, they needed a change, and let's see how it goes.
Yep, pretty much. The Philadelphia Flyers have been kind of a perennial playoff team for the last little while. They make the playoffs, but they're an early exit. They're kind of like the Minnesota Wild of the Eastern Conference. Eastern Conference. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, they've got Claude Giroux back, who had a fantastic year last year. Dave Hakstol was a previous coach at North Dakota. We talked about him to an extent last podcast. Whether he gets another job in the NHL short term, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised seeing him become an assistant coach on a team. To be honest, I wouldn't mind if he got hired by the Rangers as an assistant coach, because he's had that experience like, what's his name? Oh, I've forgotten his name now. David Quinn, of teaching young players at college. We have a lot of young players on the roster. We're going through that rebuild. So I wouldn't be too amiss if that happened. But we'll see what Hakstol does. I would imagine he'd either get a job in the minor leagues or he'd go back to the college ranks for at least the rest of the season and see what happens there, but we don't know. So that's pretty much everything to do with the NHL. There's a few sort of slightly more serious... Well, there's one slightly more serious topic that I'm doing... my video is going up at 10 o'clock tonight, and there's a kind of ridiculous topic that happened out of the NHL. Nothing related to the actual on-ice play that I am doing a video on tomorrow. So apart from then, there wasn't really anything else happening in the NHL in terms of news. It's just a bit more of the same. Nothing crazy. No trades. No crazy player movement. So nothing much to add on that. So we move back across the pond. So we've gone from Europe across the pond to North America. We've taken a round trip back, and we go to Europe with the Champions Hockey League. Now, this is something we mention occasionally on the podcast, I should say. It's something that we've kind of taken a step back from since Cardiff were eliminated during the group stages. However, I thought it would be nice to mention that the semi-finalists of the Champions Hockey League playoffs have been announced this last week. So I have the bracket sitting up here for me, and both the Red Bull teams have made it through to the semi-finals. Red Bull Munich and Red Bull Salzburg, they will be playing each other in the semi-finals. And Frölunda have returned once again to the semi-finals, and they will be playing HC Pilsen, I believe of the Czech Republic. Don't quote me on that though. And they will be playing each other in the semi-final for the other side of the table. So I believe the first, I've got the list here, let me just find it. So the 8th of January is the first leg. It's a two-game aggregate series similar to the Challenge Cup quarter and semi-finals. Is the semi-finals 2-game aggregate for the Challenge Cup?
Semi-final for the Challenge Cup, yes.
Yeah, okay. So it's similar to the quarter and semi-finals of the Challenge Cup. 2-game aggregate series. So Frölunda and Pilsen and Munich and Salzburg, both first legs are on the 8th of January, with both the second legs taking place, one of them's taking place on the 15th and one of them's taking place on the 16th of January. I have no doubt that either Free Sports or Premier Sports will be showing 1, 2, 3, 4, at least some of the games that are being shown. I wouldn't mind watching Frölunda, actually. So Pilsen and Frölunda, I think, will be the 15th, and then Salzburg Munich is the 16th of January for the second leg. So keep an eye on that if you're interested in the Champions Hockey League. Of course, the big story, I think, is Frölunda returning to the semi-finals. They've won the Champions Hockey League twice over the last 3 seasons, I believe. They've been the most successful team in the Champions Hockey League ever, with captain Joel Lundqvist, brother of New York Rangers and future Hall of Famer Henrik Lundqvist, was actually a draft pick by the Dallas Stars back in the day and played against Henrik Lundqvist in a few games, which is pretty crazy. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see this. Any thoughts that you have on the Champions Hockey League semi-final, Chris?
I mean, similar to you, I've kind of disengaged myself from it now. Cardiff aren't in it. But, I mean, we've seen Red Bull Salzburg play, Red Bull Munich as well. I've got, I know a small amount. I mean, obviously, I know who they are. That's about the extent of it. I would like to hazard a bet that a team that starts with Red Bull will be in the final, obviously.
Hey, so
what you want to do is you want to find a bookies that's not figured that out and put a big bet on it.
Yeah, like you say, a Red Bull team of some sort is going to make it through to the finals. And another important note to add, until last year where Jyp Jyväskylä won from Finland, I want to say, before last year's Champions Hockey League, a Swedish team had won it every single year. So I would say hedge your bets on the Swedish team. So Frölunda might be the one you go for in this. They've won it themselves. Like, it's not as if Swedish teams have won it, that means Frölunda's going to win. Frölunda have won it twice already.
Yeah, they've won it themselves, yeah.
Yeah, and not just once as well. Like, they've won it multiple times. I'm pretty sure they won it back-to-back seasons. So I'm going to hedge my bets on Frölunda taking it again, just based on history, and they're always a very strong team on the international stage. They're in the Swedish Hockey League, one of the best flights of European hockey. You could argue second only to the KHL, which doesn't play completely in Europe. So, I think it's going to be very interesting. I definitely want to keep an eye on this, and within the next few weeks or so, by about mid to late January, we'll be able to talk about it in a little bit more detail. Because, of course, this is an extra league that runs in parallel with the domestic league. So you kind of hear about stuff like this, and then it takes a little while for anything to actually happen that you need to talk about. So there's the Champions Hockey League. Thought you might be interested in that. I certainly was. Now we move slightly further in Europe to the KHL. You guys know that I like to talk about the KHL at times. I think it's quite a good league. I think there's a lot of very good players there, and it's a league that a lot of people forget about. But there was a strategy meeting held on December 12th, 5 days ago, between most, if not all, of the heads and the general managers of all the KHL clubs met in Moscow to discuss the current activities as well as their 7-year development strategy. And the KHL have done a really nice article on it where they've got subheadings and all of the little bits you need to know that took place. So I'll just run through these. Feel free to let me know what you think at the end in the chat, or Chris, go for it. So, the KHL and the NHL, an updated version of the Memorandum of Understanding of Contracts between the KHL and the NHL has been agreed. Of course, there's a lot of talk whether players can sign with a KHL team and once they get an offer from the NHL just leave and go to play in the best league in the world. So in line with the KHL stated strategy, this agreement ensures that clubs in both leagues are increasingly protected from unauthorised transfers. The new memorandum ensures that the decisions of the arbitration bodies in both leagues will now be recognised, as well as being assisted in their ongoing functions. This document also sets out the procedure for concluding future contracts with players who are currently under contract in one of the leagues. So I think this is a really good step forward for the NHL and the KHL. They're very much... It's not as if, like, the NHL could very much be in a position where we're like, we don't care about the KHL, we're going to nickel your players because we're the best team in the best league in the world. We can have a monopoly on something like this. But the fact that they're actively trying to work with the KHL and go, look, you've got a player that will let him stay there for the rest of the season because he's contracted to you guys, but then it's probably best that the team that owns his rights takes him. Lots of players get drafted out of the KHL nowadays from a variety of teams and in the variety of rounds. Most recently, the New York Rangers took Krajcik from, what's the name, Tractor Chelyabinsk in a top 10 pick. So you've got a good agreement going with these two leagues, which I think is very important. They also mention anti-doping. The KHL continues to respect and support medical and anti-doping measures and will continue to work in full compliance with the relevant components of the previous agreed 2013 strategy. Essentially, they're hoping to result in a 10% increase in the number of doping samples that they find. The KHL created and approved anti-doping program has also been sent to all clubs, and in April 2019 they'll have a special training seminar for anti-doping and things like that. Of course, Russia's been very controversial with doping in the last few years, but this is essentially saying, like, we're not going to take we're going to take doping completely seriously in our league, and we want to cut down on any players that are playing on performance-enhancing drugs, which I think is also very good. Whether or not that actually is enforced as well as it can be, of course, remains to be seen, but that's the same with any anti-doping situation. They also mentioned about TV production, and apparently 93% of all of the television broadcasts have been produced in HD format this season, which is 6.5% more than the same period last season, so that's good. And they're hoping the increased volume is planned to continue for the remainder of the season. I mean, it is 2018, HD TV is kind of a thing nowadays, so eventually it will get to 100%, I would imagine, but once again, taking steps in the right direction. I would like it to see, this is purely from a selfish perspective, I'd like to see more English commentators be used on KHL streams. I think that would help open up the market a lot more, because a lot of these countries, English is their second language, and if you're trying to watch a team play away in Russia, they might be able to understand the English a little bit better than the Russian. That's just a purely selfish thing, and plus I want to be able to watch more of them. So, purely selfish. Anything you want to mention so far? I feel like I've just been rambling on a little bit.
No, go for it. Carry on.
Okay. So, the KHL Club website upgrade recommendations. This is the next one. An analysis of the internet resources of all KHL clubs was conducted this last summer. A series of recommendations for the development of individual club websites has been created based on the results of the study, so as to increase their attractiveness and usefulness for fans. These recommendations have already been sent to clubs. They haven't mentioned whether any of these have been put in place and whether there's been any statistics as to whether that's improved fan engagement or more traffic going to each of the team's websites. So some stuff going out there. We'll see over the rest of the season whether anything happens. Don't know why I keep getting these Twitch alert things going on here, but fair enough. Regular season 2018-19 attendance. So this is quite a big one. Attendance during the regular season games has been fairly strong, with an average of 6,195 spectators per game, which some of the markets in the KHL are a lot smaller than others. For example, SKA St. Petersburg, they have the Ice Palace in St. Petersburg that can rival an NHL rink, for example. So places like that and CSKA Moscow and Jokerit even in Finland, they'll get a lot more fans in, so they're much higher than the average. This is the third best turnout recorded since the inception of the KHL 11 seasons ago. So that's pretty good, with some weeks being the second best in KHL history. Nonetheless, there are several clubs that still have work to do to grow attendance, and of course these are the teams that have less money, less salary, and are just overall a bit shitter than some of the other teams. They've also talked a big bit about financial fair play. Financial fair play principles are a key component to the 2023 strategy and are intended to ensure the financial sustainability of KHL clubs. In case you didn't know, the KHL dropped 2 teams at the end of last season because they just weren't financially viable. So I think they dropped from a 32-team league or a 30-team league to either 28 or 30 respectively, can't quite remember. The KHL has already conducted a financial analysis of clubs' activities for the 2018-19 season to date. And the total amount of state financing is 57% of total financing, or 31.5 billion rubles. Since the approval of the new strategy by the Board of Directors, expenditure of regional and state-owned clubs has been reduced by almost 1.8 billion rubles. So during the season, the volume of funding from regional budgets is projected to decrease by 17% from last season, at the same time as funding from private companies growing by 22%. So that's a good sign. It means that private companies are investing more into these teams as opposed to it being expected to be come out in taxes or from people that may not necessarily be interested in the sport coming out of their paychecks as well. So I think that's quite good. The majority of clubs' costs is on player wages, as you would imagine, which make up to 48% of expenditure on average. Of course, they have a soft salary cap, as I mentioned in one of my videos last year, to do with the KHL playoffs and whether it was rigged or not, which was a lovely... thumbnail by Chris, by the way. That's good to know that they're starting to get their finances in order. They're taking steps in the right direction. And then we've got 2 smaller ones, and I'll let you talk for as long as you want, Chris. All-Star Week. Next month, Tatarstan will host the 3rd week of Hockey Stars All-Stars game from 3 of our leagues, the KHL, the JHL, and the WHL, which isn't the Western Hockey League. They'll take place in Kazan and what the hell is that word? Nizhnekamsk.
Come on, give it a go.
Nizhnekamsk, I think is how you're supposed to pronounce that. That was an alright pronunciation. I'm quite happy with that. And the final rosters for this event have already been announced. The Week of Hockey Stars will open in that place I just mentioned, where the best Junior Hockey League players will face off against each other. Then the next day, it's the Women's Hockey League players will hit the ice, which is the WHL for them. On January 19th, Kazan will host the main event, as well as the tournament between the 4 divisions teams the next day. They've already got into the whole KHL All-Star Game stuff, which is cool. And then lastly, the KHL World Games, which is an interesting one, especially as international fans. Of course, I went to the game between Dinamo Riga and SK St. Petersburg in Zurich, which was great. Wasn't a full arena, which was a shame, but it was good. So the KHL undertook its inaugural KHL World Games series in Europe this year, in Vienna to begin with in October, and then in Zurich for November. International expansion is a part of KHL strategy. This projection is a presentation of the KHL's product to new markets, promotion of its brand, and a way to show the level of hockey played across the KHL to new markets and spectators. At its core, it's live contact with its European fans. So I would very much imagine that they're going to do this for next season and the seasons that follow. I think, for example, they're looking to try and put a team in Vienna and Zurich based on the fact that they've put those teams there, so I wouldn't be surprised if we found them there. Some interesting and pretty tough markets maybe to crack, considering the Swiss love their hockey already, so good luck with that, folks. But yeah, so those were the kind of big talking points to do with the KHL meeting. Is there anything that jumped out at you there, Chris?
The expansion to other countries, like in that. I like the fact that they want the clubs to have their own website, because I do agree with that.
Yep.
They seem to be doing all the right things. I mean, hopefully they all come off, and please just let's have one in London. Yeah,
I think that's obviously been in conversation for quite a while. I think they'd need to come and play a game here first, which you could argue is what the KHL are doing against Team GB.
Well, yeah.
So we've got a couple of KHL teams coming over to play Team GB, like we mentioned either last week or a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff there. So, yeah, that's to do with the KHL. Thought I'd bring that up. Now we move to Brits Abroad. And we start with Kirk's Corner.
Liam Kirk.
So, go on, Chris. Okay. How's Kirky been doing?
He's had a very good week. 3 games this week and 3 points. Hey. All of them goals. So, 3 goals in the 3 games for Liam Kirk. He scored on... what was that? That's Thursday. And then he had a break on Saturday before scoring 2 goals on Sunday.
Yeah, he scored 2 goals yesterday. So close to a hat-trick. So close.
Yeah, I was really hoping he did it, especially because I was commentating on the Lions at the time, and especially when he scored the first, and then early in the second period he got his second. I was like, please.
Yeah.
But,
So, Kirky's been playing very well. Do you have the overall stats for him so far this season?
I can... do they have them at the top? They might have them. Yes, they do. Okay, 33 games played, 11 goals, 8 assists, 19 points.
So, yeah, he's averaging a point every other game pretty much at the moment. I think we're now starting to see, like we mentioned within the first few weeks of the podcast, that he's starting to find his form. He's starting to get adjusted to the North American game and feel comfortable with the North American game, which is great. And it's kind of one of those things that, like, Kirky's a long-term investment. Like, you draft him in the 7th round because he's a guy that he may take a couple more years than some of the other players, but if you put the time and effort and give him the chance to grow and get good playing time and play in key situations, he could pay dividends down the stretch. And I think we're now starting to see that already with the fact that he's now about halfway through the OHL season and he's now starting to go a point per game. Like, if you took out the first 20 games or so, he's been going a point per game ever since. So he's definitely started to find his form, and it's really good to see, actually. And what about Tomo's DEL adventure, Chris?
Not such a good week for Tomo. A 500 week, won 1, lost 1. He's now 5-6-0 overall.
Yeah, so Tomo is... it's rough. Chris and I had a quick chat about it before the beginning of the podcast. And, of course, he's on a team that was, like, bottom of the league to begin with anyway. So it was going to be a hard battle to climb up those standings, especially because there are a few games worth of points separating his team and some of the other teams slightly above him. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that team does going into the new year. If Tomo gets an extension with the team, to be fair, going 5-6, considering he's had no or barely any sort of say on who's on the roster, I think is pretty good.
He has closed the gap to Wolfsburg, the team above.
Oh, there you go. So I think it's quite respectable what he's been doing there so far. I think he's definitely been showing that British people within the British hockey system have something to give on the larger European stage. So hopefully he gets a few more wins and maybe climbs out of last place. I would say if Tomo manages to get that team out of last place, that season's been a success. Because they've been sitting bottom of the league for most of the season. Their other coach clearly couldn't get it done for them. And, of course, the first few weeks when you have a new coach, the players are learning a completely different system of play. Now we should start to see some of the wins coming because they're starting to get comfortable with how Tomo plays or what Tomo's strategy is. So I think that's pretty awesome. So we move on now to the wonderful, the glorious fantasy scores. And the fantasy scores from this last week look a little bit like this. So we had me play the Duncan PlayStations, a very close matchup. 4 points separating
I've not seen all the scores yet.
Yeah, so 109 to 105 in favour of me, which was so close. Very glad that I just about managed to squeak that through. Then Chris is going undefeated once again with 129 points to 122 to Max's Nottingham Outlaws. Chris, come on, can you let somebody else win for once? It's a little bit unfair.
I've got the Croatian Jets this week and they got 131, so maybe yes.
Oh, hopefully. Then the Nottingham Yeet beat the Shaw Billionaires 128 to 86, and Trump's fake wife beat Habsuck Don't Know. Both of them clearly aren't changing their rosters, 57 to 46. Then, like you said, the Croatian Jets, they beat the Pyongyang Sucklords 131 to 88. The Denver Sports team managed to beat Stanley Yelnats 111 to 68. The Toronto Thunderbirds beat the Portsmouth Pirates, who I am playing this week, I believe, 85 to 68. And Clarkie's Infants beat the Beanheads 86 to 72. So, this upcoming week, this is the week before Christmas. So we've got a lot of games taking place here. If it will just load up, that would be swell. Is it going to load? Is it going to load? Yep,
it has for me.
So, Odd Man Rush, me, is playing the Portsmouth Pirates. Stanley Yelnats is playing the Nottingham Outlaws. The Toronto Thunderbirds playing the Nottingham Yeet. Clarkie's Infants playing Habsuck. The Lions playing the Jets. Go on, Croatian Jets. The Shaw Billionaires are playing the Denver Sports Team. Trump's fake wife is playing the Duncan PlayStations. And the Nottingham Redhawks are playing the Beanheads, with the Pyongyang Sucklords taking a bye week. So
I guarantee I won't win next week, if that's any consolation.
What do you mean?
Well, because I'm on my bye week, so I won't win.
Fair enough. How nice for you. So those are the scores or the upcoming games. Sort out your fantasy lineups, guys. Make sure you get them done. I'm going to sort mine out after the podcast ends. So
done mine.
Well, there you go. See, this is why he's leading. This is why he's undefeated. He's on it. So yeah, we've pretty much come to the end of the stream now. We're about an hour and 44 minutes in. So we'll go to about we'll go for the next 5 minutes. If anybody's got a topic, it's last call now, ladies and gents. If you have anything that you want us to talk about for the last 5 minutes, write it in the chat now. If it's something that we either missed or didn't talk about in the podcast, or you want to do something else, or talk about something that we haven't talked about, or talked about in some detail, do let us know. In terms of what's going on with the channel, I kind of feel like this is the best time to fill in with that. Once again, hit 3,000 subscribers. I mentioned that at the beginning of the stream. Thank you very much, everyone, that helped me hit 3,000 subscribers. It's really awesome. I mean, in the grand scheme of the YouTube game, that's practically nothing, but I'm really happy with how well it's been doing. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really good. Thank you so much, guys. I didn't realise that somebody that has never actually played a game of hockey before and sits on his ass talking about the sport can actually do so well, which I think is pretty cool. And yeah, I've got a video going out tonight at 10 PM, so in about an hour's time, hour and 15 minutes time, you'll have that to look forward to. It's one of my more sort of commentary reaction videos. You guys seem to like them last week, so I thought I'd do another one. This one's a little bit more serious, but still crack a few jokes. I keep them relevant. It's not the best one I've done out of those ones, but I still think it's pretty good. And I've got one tomorrow, which should be a lot more fun, which I'll upload tomorrow. So, yeah, like Chris mentioned in the chat, I've commentated an EIHL game before, and it's all thanks to this geezer over here. Where are you? I'm trying to point to you.
Top left, top left.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what we should do to round off, actually, is next week and the week after.
Ah, yes, that's a good point.
Go on, I'll let you do it.
No, by all means. Sorry, I just completely forgot about it.
Right.
Go.
Yeah, so I did until just now. So next week is obviously Christmas Eve, and the week after is New Year's Eve, which means we're not around to do this live.
Yeah.
So do you guys want us to pre-record one, and for Oddman to try and get it out on 7 o'clock on Monday?
I'm sure.
Or shall we just take a Christmas break and come back on the 7th of January, sorry.
I'd just like to point out, like, regardless of what happens, there will still be a few videos that go up over the Christmas holidays.
Yeah, he'll still be doing videos.
I'm still going to be uploading stuff. That doesn't mean, like, do I just take 2 weeks off or anything. Like, this is purely based on the podcast. Like, we don't get the hugest viewership. Like, we have a nice little group of you here, which we really appreciate, guys. Thanks for coming back every single week. But yeah, like, if you guys are busy during the Christmas holidays and you can't make it, we don't really want to sit here during Christmas Eve, or we don't have the opportunity to sit here during Christmas Eve and record for 90 minutes. We'd rather skip 2 weeks and follow on and try and keep up to date, because there won't be a huge amount taking place these next 2 weeks anyway. So we can either do that, or we can pre-record them a couple of days in advance. Try and get all the important news in there. Of course, we won't be able to do any of the scores, most likely. But yeah, let us know. I can always put up a poll on the
yeah, put up a poll on Twitter
on the channel that you guys can take a look on my community tab. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Just let us know what you think about that. Yeah, I think now that you've mentioned that, Chris, is actually quite helpful. Thank you very much. I think it's important to note that I will still be uploading over the Christmas holidays, but not as much as I usually do, because I deserve to have Christmas too. So yeah, I've still got a lot of videos, but over the Christmas holidays I'm going to be writing a lot of videos and coming up with lots of ideas for lots of videos to make sure that 2019 starts off with a bang. So yeah, the creation never stops, ladies and gents. I mean, the fact that I'm getting so many videos out at the moment is actually somewhat of a Christmas miracle in itself, because I'm just lucky at the moment that I have a lot of time to do it. So, yeah, some of you are saying pre-record. I'll probably stick up a poll in the next few days.
Put a poll up.
On the thing. So, yeah, I think now's a good point to end it, actually. So, yes, that has been episode 14 of the Icing on the Skate podcast. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you have enjoyed. Thank you, Chris, for joining me once again. And thank you for 3,000 subscribers to all you guys, whether you've been watching from 2,980 or from 345. I appreciate the support from all of you. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, guys. But for now, goodbye.